the race to become Labor's next leader after Saturday's shock loss. The left's Anthony Albanese is now in a contest with the right faction's Chris Bowen, the shadow treasurer. Both are stressing today that, well, they, unlike Shorten really, know how to talk to voters. They're men of the people.
I myself will be campaigning very much on, one, on my record, two, on I think the clear view that people have of me. What you see is what you get. I'm tough. People know what my values are. I'm prepared to articulate them in a clear fashion. And I like people. I like engaging people.
My pitch is I can connect with suburban and regional Australia. I come from the suburbs, from here. My wife and I are raising two wonderful kids down the road from here in Smithfield, the same suburb I grew up in, from this house. I can, I think, lead the economic debate, which we must win.
But listening to them today, it sounded as if all Labor needs is a better salesman, not a better product. I still haven't heard these guys really talking about what most needs doing, which is getting Labor off that mad global warming truck. Here's former Labor Minister Steve Conroy, who does see the problem.
Labor has to step back from the sort of Greens-led, get-up-led demonisation of coal. I think it has to be pragmatic and sensible about there are significant jobs, taxation revenue, and the futures of people in regional Australia rely on these things.
So, until Labor has that debate, it risks making a big mistake. A mistake of the kind that the Liberals made by picking Malcolm Turnbull as their leader. Well, OK, not quite that big and disastrous, but, wow, what a shocker that was. And we saw today, by the way, a last twist in that terrible tale when Malcolm Turnbull flew back to Australia with a scowl on his face. But before I get to that, the mistake I'm talking about here is that habit of Labor and the Liberals to pick their leader without first figuring out where they want to be led to. How can they know that they've got the right person for that particular job? I mean, you take Turnbull. The Liberals thought, well, he's the most popular person we've got. Let's make him Prime Minister. Well, that was a huge mistake because Turnbull led the Liberals to the left, particularly on global warming, when they actually needed to stand against that hysteria and stay right of centre. Wrong man for the job. Result, terrible polls, the party torn apart. And then, when the Liberals did finally replace Turnbull with Scott Morrison, the revenge Turnbull took, endorsing even Liberal turncoat Julia Banks to run against the Health Minister, Greg Hunt, or attacking Home Affairs Minister Peter Dutton, who'd led the coup against Turnbull. What a miserable election night Turnbull must have had over there in New York. Liberals won, Greg Hunt won, Peter Dutton won. Of all his enemies, only Tony Abbott lost. So when Malcolm Turnbull flew back today from New York, he did not look like a happy camper, and he couldn't resist one last whack at Dutton.
Mr Turnbull, yesterday you tweeted your congratulations for Scott Morrison following his unexpected federal election win. Personally, how difficult was it for you to make this concession?
I congratulate Scott on a very outstanding personal victory. I've been in touch with him and conveyed that congratulations directly as well.
Isn't this a result of ultimate vindication for those who pushed so hard for change in the Liberal Party leadership, which obviously resulted in the demise of your political career?
Thanks for your inquiry. Scott has won a momentous victory. It was an outstanding personal victory, and I've congratulated him on it. And I'm very glad that in that dreadful time in August, he succeeded to the Prime Ministership rather than Peter Dutton, who you may recall was the person that those behind the insurgency, both inside the Parliament and outside the Parliament, wanted to be Prime Minister. So,
gee, the face on him. They must serve an awful lot of lemons in first class. Now, obviously, neither Albanese or Bowen are likely to do a Turnbull. They're really Labor people and not pretenders. But still, think now where Labor needs to go after this shock defeat. Which of those two guys is most likely to get the party to where it needs to go? Labor lost this election because of its tax policies, particularly slashing negative gearing, hitting franking dividends of retirees, and especially because it went crazy. This was the key. It went crazy on global warming. All that rubbish about making us buy more electric cars, and especially about maybe Labor stopping the Adani coal mine in Queensland. Result, Labor's vote in Queensland collapsed. Election, gone. So, Labor, of course, has got to worry less about global warming, the religion of the rich, and worry more about how global warming policies hurt the poor. Now, quoted before Steve Conroy, here is Labor frontbencher Joel Fitzgibbon from the Hunter Valley, coal mining territory, who says if none of the two leadership candidates so far talk about this factor, he will run for leader too.
I'm considering doing so, yes. I'd much rather someone else do it, but if I need to do it to secure the new path, the new direction we need, then I certainly will.
And now the bad news. Neither Anthony Albanese nor Chris Bowen are talking about going cool on global warming. Now, I think that's in part because Labor's members get half the vote in choosing Labor's next leader, and they tend to be of the left, global warming crusaders. So Albanese today was still talking up wind and solar power.
I mean, when you talk about renewable energy, the sun's free, the wind's free. The only cost is essentially about labour, and that is why it is potentially such a significant employer.
Oh, dear God, that is just such rubbish. Wind and solar power are actually expensive because they both need backup power for when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine. Anyone knows that. But at least Albanese and Bowen do differ, slightly, on Labor's other terrible policy. Bowen, who designed that policy, Labor's tax policy, today defended even the worst of it, that hit on self-funded retirees.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Some say Labor lost the election because of franking credits, which was a policy I designed. It is true, it was my policy. I designed it. Franking credits was a controversial policy for which, no doubt, we lost some votes. But I don't accept it's why we lost the election in entirety. We also lost the election because of policies we don't have, like a death tax.
Yeah, it was all the fault of a Liberal scare. But Albanese is at least hinting at limiting the franking credit policy. Today was also hinting that he'd maybe like to limit Labor's cuts to negative gearing. But so, there we are. Labor must change, pull back on the huge tax grab that Bowen designed and is still defending. So that job sounds to me like a job for Albo. And Labor needs to pull back on global warming. Well, neither of them are talking about that, but again, it seems instinctively to me another job for Albanese. As a man of the left, he is more likely to be able to persuade the left to let it go. If he will do that, then yes, Albo for Labor leader. They've got a big question mark about his energy and discipline, but still, Albo for Labor leader. But then, this talk today from Albo has got to stop.
Well, climate change is a priority. Anyone who looks at the science knows that that's the case.